let's get to our first conversation now. See, Nigeria's energy security has come under strain following a labor dispute between Dangote petroleum refinery and PENGASSAN. The union's directive to halt crude and gas supplies in protest over alleged mass dismissals. That's raised a risk of fuel shortages. So we'll drill down on what this means for Nigeria's oil and gas sector and the average consumer at this point, right after this break. Just stay with us. And it's another day, another discussion about the Dangote refinery and the impact with PENGASSAN, DAPMAN, and all the oil marketers at this point. And, definitely there's been a lot of talk about what to expect for consumers, for Nigeria's economy, if we have that industrial action at this point now that we're enjoying GDP rising from other quarters, and we're also kind of looking forward to a better Q4 that's for GDP growth in Nigeria. Let's see how all of this plays into the sentiments and the markets there. Joining us for this conversation, we have Mr. Nick Gule, is an oil and gas expert, joining me from our Abuja studio. Great to have you in the show, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, Ladi, and good morning to our viewers globally. Happy to be here.
Fantastic. It's great to have you. Well, let's look at the matter now from an energy security impact, perspective. How could a prolonged disruption, at Dangote refinery, how could that affect domestic fuel availability and, pricing in Nigeria? Not to forget that, the prices, even though we've had stable prices for a while now, we still have a couple of Nigerians still, struggling with the current price of PMS at this point. And now we have the labor side of things, coming into play here. So, break it down for me. How are you seeing, all that's playing out? Because it seems ever since we had this refinery, it's just been one thing after the other.
Thank you very much. If you ask me, I would say this is a dispute that we should not even contemplate, because fuel is very important to the economy. In the Nigerian economy, fuel is important not only because it mobilizes engines like cars and trucks and all of that, but it is also used for power generation. So if we have a disruption in the fuel value chain, it's going to have a big impact, a big negative impact on the economy, on the livelihood of Nigerians, and it will destroy businesses, and the confidence in the economy will be dampened. So this is something that shouldn't happen. And for me, my position is clear. We are a nation of laws. When we come to labor laws, we have a coterie of labor laws. We have the Nigerian Constitution. Then we have the Labor Act 2004. Then we have the Trade Unions Act. We have the Employee Compensation Act. We have the Pension Reform Act, we have the Minimum Wage Act, and we have the International Labour Organization laws that we have subscribed to. So there are a lot of laws governing labor in Nigeria. And what then has to happen is that both Dangote refinery and the unions, which is PENGASSAN and NUPENG, they all need to comply with the laws. If they comply with the laws, then everybody will be happy. That means Dangote will be happy, the unions will be happy, and Nigerians will be happy, and our economy will be the better for it. So, before Dangote came on board, we had the NNPC refineries that were not working. Then we have an importation regime, and then we had the unions who were part and parcel of all of that. But now that Dangote has come on board, something is going to shift. There's a new dynamic. And what I'm saying here is that all parties now need to understand that under this new dynamic, everybody needs to just stay within the laws, stay within the boundaries. So for Dangote refinery, they must understand that by the Constitution of Nigeria, by the labor laws that are already listed out, their workers have a right to unionize if they want to. Because there's freedom of association in our Constitution, and the Trade Union Act is very clear on that. And then the unions also need to understand that they cannot just wake up in the morning and say we are grounding Nigeria's economy to a halt. There are processes that you have to undergo to be able to call a strike. right? And then there are things that they need to do with the laws that we have for them to be able to get to a point of striking. So this is my position. Let everybody stay within the laws.
All right. So in your opinion, who has the power to stop gas supply to the Dangote refinery?
So if PENGASSAN and NUPENG have their members who are responsible for gas supply to the refinery, and they want to go on a union activity of stopping such a supply, they could. But what I'm saying is that you can't just wake up in the morning and do that. You have to follow the laws. What are the laws? Have they given the appropriate notices? You know, have they even considered legal action? You know, so you can't just wake up in the morning and want to shut Nigeria down because you have access to critical national assets. Because this, what we're talking about here is national security. Because if we don't have petroleum products, I mean, even if our security agencies and all of that, they will not have fuel in their vehicle to be able to tackle insecurity. So everybody must just stay within the laws, and everybody will be safe.
Right, and talking about staying within the laws, how should unions like PENGASSAN, how should they balance workers' rights with the wider public interest at this point? What do you think should be the right move from them, aside going to the courts and all?
So the Dangote refinery has no choice. If their workers want to unionize, they have no choice. Their hands are tied. They will have to allow these workers to be unionized. Because at the end of the day, we need everybody. We need Dangote refinery because Dangote refinery has come to remove shame from us. The shame that as one of the world's largest producers of crude oil and perhaps even gas, we never had refineries. And the NNPC, now NNPCL, continue to give us hope. But we never had refineries. So we're importing 100% of our petroleum products, which was a global shame for us. And Dangote has come to do that for us. So we like Dangote, we want him, we want his business to succeed. But at the same time, we also love the workers. Because even if you have a refinery and you don't have workers, then no refining activity will take place. So these workers also, their interests must be protected, and the unionization means they are able to get collective bargaining, and they are able to ensure that their employer is treating them well in accordance with the laws of the land. So we cannot say we are going to be for Dangote refinery alone, or we are going to be for the workers alone. We are for both of them, but we want each and every one of them to carry on this activity or this dispute within the laws of Nigeria, and we know that the laws are robust enough to protect the interests of all.
And what would you say are the risks of framing legitimate labor disputes as, economic sabotage? How do we draw the line there? Because at the end of the day, you want workers to be able to, be protected and also, speak when they feel like they're being treated unfairly. But you don't want to tag such moves as economic sabotage. So where do we find the balance here?
Well, I think if the unions go through the motions as dictated by the law, and their employer is not willing to come to the table for them, then they have a right to strike. That is also protected under the Trade Union Act. And I would think that Dangote refinery should not take a position that would lead to the workers going on strike. Right? So Dangote refinery has a duty as an employer to also stay within the laws. And if the laws allow the workers to unionize, then the workers must be allowed to unionize. However, the law is clear. A worker is not bound to unionize. A worker can only unionize voluntarily. And a worker is not bound to belong to a specific union. So the position of NUPENG, for instance, that these workers should belong to NUPENG is wrong. That's a very wrong position. The workers can belong to any union of their choice. And I know that NUPENG is facing competition right now with the truck drivers union that has now been formed. And NUPENG has nothing to do about that. If another union has been set up and is legitimately recognized by our laws, then workers can belong to that union without NUPENG doing anything about it. And I want NUPENG to know, and PENGASSAN also, that they cannot take Nigeria for a ransom. They cannot wake up and say, oh, we are going to stop gas supply, we are going to stop petroleum products on this day without going through the motions, because they are not a law upon themselves. They are operating within the laws of Nigeria. They were licensed by the laws of Nigeria, and if they are breaching the provisions and the conditions of their license, then the government is right to revoke that license, and they will no longer be recognized as a union. Because I have a problem with NUPENG. NUPENG is very militant, is very activist, doesn't want to go through the motions. And if you want me to vent my spleen on NUPENG, I can do that, because part of the problem we have in this country right now is caused by NUPENG. When in 2007, the President Obasanjo government sold off the refineries, it's NUPENG that came forward to say, no, the refineries should not be sold. 18 years later, $18 billion sank. The refineries are not still working. And we don't see NUPENG coming out on this to try and get refineries to work. So for me, if NUPENG is for Nigeria, then they really need to demonstrate that they are for Nigeria. But then, let me just say before I give way, we are talking about trucking petroleum products from Lekki in Lagos to as far in country as Maiduguri or Sokoto or Kano or Kaduna. Ladi, petroleum products are transported via pipelines because they are combustible materials. Imagine loading this combustible material in a tanker in Lekki and letting that tanker drive for several days on the same roads that motorists are driving on. That tanker is going through villages, towns, and cities where there is a population of people to carry this petroleum product on very bad roads with a high risk of this tanker now having an accident or people coming to scoop petroleum products, then there is a fire and Nigerians are killed. Why are our pipelines not working? Because the NNPCL has got pipelines crisscrossing this country. And President Tinubu is watching the NNPCL and doing nothing about them. Our refineries are dead. The pipelines they have under their management are dead. When will President Tinubu take an action on NNPCL?
All right, so I guess so much to unpack there. There's also the safety part of things, not just energy security and trying to avoid industrial action at this point. But we'll keep tracking to see how it plays out, and hopefully the consumer is protected going forward. Thank you so much, Mr. Nick Agule, for bringing your perspective to us this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ladi, and good morning to all our viewers.